You don't talk much. Some people hear this phrase all the time, but what most people completely fail to understand is that it is not that they can't talk, it's that they don't talk in the wrong environment. There is a widespread, almost universal belief that quiet people are simply always quiet. But psychology shows us that this rigid belief simply isn't true. Many individuals who seem entirely silent in one specific place can be completely different somewhere else. In the right setting, they can be highly expressive, deeply talkative, and even loud. Just not with everyone.
This happens because human communication is not just about baseline personality traits. It is heavily dependent on comfort, trust, and connection. One of the main reasons people don't talk much is the vibe of the environment. When something feels off, like forced conversations, fake energy, or people trying entirely too hard, they naturally pull back. In these moments, they don't feel any burning need to match the artificial energy of the room, and they absolutely refuse to force themselves to fit in just to avoid being noticed. Instead of engaging in the chaos, they choose to stay quiet and observe. Not because they're awkward, but because they're highly aware. Psychology explains this fascinating behavior through a concept called social filtering. Some people possess a built-in mechanism where they automatically and often unconsciously filter exactly where they want to invest their words. Before they even open their mouths, their brain asks, is this interaction actually worth my energy? Do I feel comfortable in this space? Are these people genuine? If the answer is no, they immediately limit how much they say. But when they find the right people, the people they genuinely trust, everything changes. Around their trusted circle, they do not hold back. They joke, they passionately share their opinions, and they speak completely freely without overthinking every single word. This is exactly why quiet people often hear the phrase, "You were so quiet before, but now you talk a lot." It is not an inconsistency. It is simply context. Another important factor driving this behavior is the profound need for psychological safety. People naturally open up when they feel entirely safe from judgment, rejection, or misunderstanding.
If someone gets the subtle feeling that their words might be ignored, unfairly judged, or twisted, they would rather stay silent. Not because they're weak, but because they're actively protecting themselves. Past experiences also play a massive role in shaping how much a person speaks today. Some people actually used to talk a lot more, but over time they were constantly interrupted, dismissed, or simply not taken seriously. So they learned to become hyper-selective with their communication. They realized a powerful truth. Not every space deserves their voice, and instead of endlessly forcing it, they gracefully adjusted.
There is also a strong connection to energy awareness. People who don't talk much are often incredibly sensitive to how social interactions affect their internal state. They can quickly tell when a conversation is going to be draining, overwhelmingly negative, or completely pointless. So instead of engaging just for the sake of it, they actively conserve their energy. They would much rather stay quiet than feel exhausted after a conversation that meant absolutely nothing. When they enter a brand new environment, they don't immediately jump into conversations. They watch first. They meticulously notice how people talk, how they treat others, and how they react. They are actively trying to understand the intricate social dynamics before deciding exactly how much of themselves to show. This observation phase makes them highly intentional communicators. They don't speak just to fill an awkward silence. They only speak when they feel their words actually matter, or when they feel comfortable enough to be their true selves.
At the core of the quiet personality is an unbreakable commitment to authenticity. They absolutely despise pretending. They won't fake interest in a shallow topic, they won't force a laugh just to be accepted, and they won't act talkative if they don't actually feel comfortable. If a connection isn't real, their silence will directly reflect that reality. Because they operate this way, they are often deeply misunderstood by society. People rush to assume that they're shy, that they're not friendly, or even that they think they're better than others. But in reality, it's not about ego or fear. It's entirely about alignment. They engage deeply where they feel connected and completely disengage where they don't. Another truth is this: they don't feel the need to be liked by everyone. They're perfectly okay being misunderstood by some people if it means staying real. They would much rather be fully themselves with a few people than adjust their personality to be accepted by many. But this uncompromising authenticity comes with a downside. Because they don't explain themselves often, people fill in the gaps with assumptions, and those assumptions are usually entirely wrong. They get labeled without ever being understood, and instead of exhausting themselves trying to correct everyone, they often just let it be. It is also vital to understand that silence for them is not awkward. It's completely normal. They don't feel any suffocating pressure to keep conversations going all the time. They're entirely comfortable with pauses, and they're comfortable with not speaking because they don't measure a connection by how much is said, but by how real it actually feels. And here is something most people fail to notice. When quiet people do choose to speak, it usually means something. They've already thought about it, and they've already decided it's genuinely worth saying, which is exactly why their words often carry much more weight.
So when someone looks at a person and says, "You don't talk much," what they're really seeing is only one side of that person. They're seeing them in a specific space where they don't feel fully comfortable, connected, or understood. Because the truth is incredibly simple. They're not quiet everywhere. They're just quiet where they don't feel like being themselves. Some people don't talk much, not because they have nothing to say, but because they've learned that the wrong environment can silence even the most expressive minds.